Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
And with that, I'd like to introduce Kent C. from Ohio.
It's been a couple of hours since we did any praying in here. Let's do a little bit more. Heavenly Father, use me tonight as an instrument of thy will. Speak through me, so whatever results that you desire here tonight will be accomplished in all things. Thy will, not mine, be done. Amen. What I love most about the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, the life-giving, life-changing, life-saving fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, is the simplicity of it. If you came here tonight to hear any deep metaphysical thinking, you got time to get to another meeting. I'm a real simple guy. And there's a line in the book that really underscores the simplicity of this program for me, and it's in the chapter Working with Others. And what that line simply says is remind the prospect that his recovery is not dependent upon people, it is dependent upon his relationship with God. The single most important fact in my life as I stand in Gonzales, Louisiana tonight, and the only reason I'm standing here tonight is I got a power in my life that I choose to call God, who does for me one day at a time what I could never do for myself. Let me assure everybody in this room right now, left to my own devices, I surely would have destroyed myself years ago. That prayer that I just said reminds me of two things that I believe are vital and crucial to me staying here. First and foremost, the reason I'm here tonight is to do God's will, not mine. And it also serves to remind me that He is in charge here tonight. And as always, thank God, I am not. Good evening. My name is Kent Coleman, and I'm an alcoholic. First off, my parents raised me right. If my mother was here right now, she'd jump up and say, you ain't turned out right. But anyway, no, I want to demonstrate that. I want to thank this committee for all the phone calls, the texts, the emails over the past year. For those of you who saw the committee standing up here, these things don't happen overnight. You know, 2 or 3 times a month I get off of airplanes and I have the privilege of doing this somewhere in the world. But what I can tell you is I've been on committees, therefore I know how much work goes into these. Let's give this committee another hand, please. I want to thank Mark for picking me up at the airport and for his kindness and hospitality over the last couple of days. I also want to thank him for that nice introduction I just got. I was wondering, you know, every time I hear an introduction like that in AA, it reminds me of this story. And it's a story about this man who dies, and at his funeral, his widow and young son is sitting on the front pew of the church. And the preacher got up and for 15 minutes talked about what a wonderful husband this man was. Another 15 minutes about what a great father this man was. Another 15 minutes about what an upstanding citizen this man was. Finally, the widow got this real concerned look on her face and leaned over to her son and said, hey, Junior, go up there and look in that box and see if that's your daddy. So it is always great to hear these introductions in Alcoholics Anonymous. Sometimes I think our reputations exceed our character, but I want to thank you for that, Mark. It is an honor and a privilege to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know about nobody else in here. I'm only going to speak for me tonight. But when I walked through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was more dead than alive. How can you possibly outgive a fellowship that restores life to the walking dead? No, and I'm going to tell you right now, any time that I'm asked to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous at any level, whether it's chairing, setting up, cleaning up at my home group, going into the jails, detoxes, and the institutions, coming out to talk, all of the things I've been blessed. These are blessings that I get to do to give back to this fellowship I always want to remember to say thank you. So thank you to everybody responsible for this. I want to thank the speakers who came before me and who are yet to come. My friend Jay, who I love to hear. I was just down in Mississippi talking with Jay not too long ago. Beth, who we heard this morning. We had a tremendous Al-Anon talk this afternoon, and come back tomorrow morning and hear Chuck, because you're in for a real treat. So it really is, for me to come to something like this is not just about me coming here to talk. I come here to listen. You know, my sponsor told me when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a big difference between listening and waiting for your turn to talk. Okay? And if you're new in here, you might want to take that one with you. Okay? So what I want to do tonight is I want to talk for a minute to our new friends here. We just had a sobriety countdown, and there was a lot of newer people here. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. When I walked into the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I had never been here before, nor did I know any living human being who had been here before. So when I came in here, I didn't know anything I didn't come here with AA etiquette. I didn't know what an open meeting was, what a closed meeting was, what a sponsor was, what a home group was. I didn't know a big book from a Rand McNally Atlas when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, see, I remember what it's like to be new. And see, I can stand up here tonight and talk about a whole lot of things that will go right over the head because I've been here for a long time now. And I could talk about things that are deep. No. If the newest person in here can't get something out of what I got to say, then the talk was useless. Bill Wilson, co-founder of AA, said that every AA group has one purpose, and that is to facilitate the carrying of the 12-step message to the newcomer, and any group that fails to do so is doomed to fail. It's doomed to fail. That's why we're here. So I want to talk to our new friends here tonight. When I came up in here, I saw two very distinct groups of people in Alcoholics Anonymous. First off, we'll say Group 1. Group 1 was a group of people who was in and out, in and out, in and out. Every time they came back in from being out, they looked worse than the last time they came back in from being out. I didn't see nobody coming back up in here talking about how good it was passing out $50 bills and driving a BMW when they came back. They came back in here and they talked of being restless, irritable, and discontented, and of terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. And that was Group 1. And then we had another group, Group 2. You just saw a whole bunch of Group 2 lined up here, and if you've been at this convention any amount of time this weekend, you've seen Group 2 in action. You see them at your regular meetings, don't you? Shaking hands at the door, making coffee, setting up the tables and chairs, putting out the literature. They talked about God, big book steps, spirituality, helping others, and enjoying life sober. This is Group 2. Now, as my story is going to prove to you, I am no rocket scientist. But it sure looked to me like the people in Group 2 had a better deal than the people in Group 1. So what I asked myself is, what is it, keeping it simple, that the people in Group 2 do that the people in Group 1 don't? Well, I found that the people in Group 2 had some things in common. First off, they had something called a sponsor. Now, many years ago, I used to play softball for Cronin's Tavern. They was our sponsor. They gave us free beer and clothes. I thought, well, maybe this AA deal ain't so bad, right? And what you did is you sat me down and you shared with me what a sponsor was. You told me that a sponsor is somebody who has working knowledge and experience with the 12-step program as outlined by the founders in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, who is willing to take the time to share with you that process as written in our book, and just as importantly is a living demonstration of those principles in their life, who can show me what my life can be like if I do what they do. Notice I said that this is somebody who has working knowledge, not book knowledge. I'm a college graduate. I knew how to read when I got here. See, I hear best with my eyes. Show me, and I can do it, okay? I have sponsorship in Alcoholics Anonymous today. I'm sponsored by Bob D. in Las Vegas. I still have the continued spiritual guidance of Bill F. in Lorain, Ohio, and Ken B. in Cleveland, Ohio. Bill has 50 years, Kenny has 40, and Bob has 34. That is 124 years of active, continuous sobriety that is at my disposal on a daily basis. But that is absolutely of no use to me if I don't use it. To our new friends in here tonight, I want to share something with you. Having a sponsor is a great thing. Being sponsorable is even better. I'm a guy that works intensively with other alcoholics. I sponsor a lot of men in Alcoholics Anonymous. I sponsor men all over the United States, Canada, all over Europe. A guy said to me recently, he said, "Ken, how many people do you sponsor?" I said, "About half of them." Is that not the truth, right? The only value I've gotten out of anything in Alcoholics Anonymous has come from things that I've done, not things and people that I've known. This is a program of action, okay? Sometimes I do this. I think I do it tonight. We're at the Louisiana State Convention. Would everybody that's in this room tonight who would be willing to sponsor a new person in Alcoholics Anonymous, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. If you knew and you don't have a sponsor, I just hooked you up. Nobody ever need leave an AA meeting without the benefit of sponsorship. And everybody always laughs when I do that, but I do that for a reason, because I remember what it's like to be new. And when I came here, I didn't know you. And I don't know if you got 10 years or 10 minutes, nor do I know that if you'll help a guy like me who didn't even believe he deserved any help. You can get your sponsor tonight. You now have that information. Who's in this room who will help you? What you do with that information is up to you. I carry the message. I don't carry the alcoholic. Okay? Another thing these people had in common was something called a home group. And I went to a man, I said, well, you know, I was one of them alcoholics. You ever hear this one? I bet you have. All the groups are my home group. You ever hear that one? Yeah. That's people who don't want to do nothing, right? Right. And a man said to me, "Kent, you need to get a home group. Because if you don't, you're homeless in AA." And what I found out is the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is the last place that I can afford to be homeless. I need to start giving back to this wonderful program that is giving so much to me. I need to get a commitment at that group, and I need to honor it. See, let me share something with you. Things like responsibility were not in my vocabulary when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. Many of the things that have carried over into my life today began here. You got to start somewhere, okay? I have a home group today. It's the Friday Night Venice group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Sandusky, Ohio. I come from a place very close to Akron, Ohio. My home group started in 1938 as an Oxford group meeting, okay? When I joined the Friday Night Venice group of Alcoholics Anonymous, back when I got sober, there were 4 members of that group who got sober in the 1940s and who personally knew Dr. Bob. Now, Dr. Bob been there since 1950. So I came up in Alcoholics Anonymous under some wonderful people. And I'm going to tell you this about my home group. My home group ain't the best group in the world. It ain't the worst group in the world. It's just an AA group. One of the things my sponsor Bill taught me when I came to AA is it's okay to stop competing now. Prior to Alcoholics Anonymous, everything in my life was lived on either a better than or less than basis. And an amazing thing happens when I live my life on a better than or less than basis. It excludes me from ever being a part of. Tradition 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Anytime I separate myself from you as better or worse, more than or less than, then I'm no longer a part of it. If I'm no longer a part of this, I'm a dead man. Our primary purpose is to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. I think we do a pretty good job of that, and we have a lot of fun in the process. That's what I like to call the total package in Alcoholics Anonymous. Sponsorship, big book and steps, home group, and service. In my experience, which is the only thing I'm allowed to share from behind the podium, I have yet to meet an alcoholic of our type. And if you don't know what an alcoholic of our type is, read the book. I have yet to meet an alcoholic of our type who has taken that total package, applied it to their life one day at a time to the best of their ability, which is all that's required. If you're new in here, I'm getting ready to take the pressure off of you. Perfection is not required here. All that is required here is that I do the best I can this day. I have yet to see an alcoholic of our type do that and go back out and take a drink, not one single time. To our new friends here, I want to share something with you. The program of recovery was designed for success, not for failure. Okay? On the flip side of the coin, however, I have yet to see an alcoholic of our type, I'm talking about a real alcoholic as described in our book, come in here, ignore those things, and stay sane, sober, or happy for any appreciable length of time. The simplicity of Alcoholics Anonymous. Those who do get, and those who don't, and it's just that simple. I don't know about you, but I never sat down at the tavern and watched somebody across the bar drink a drink and thought I was going to get drunk watching them drink. That's just as ridiculous as me coming in here, watching you get a sponsor in a home group and work the steps and help others and stay so, and think that miraculously it's going to rub off on me. Those who do get and those who don't, and it's just that simple. There's an old timer in our town, God rest his soul, Mr. Willie Witherspoon. Mr. Willie told me, boy, sitting in the chicken coop don't make you no chicken. Okay? Okay. I identified myself as an alcoholic when I got up here. I didn't know what that was when I came here either. I always think, you know, if you'd have asked me though, I would have gave you some kind of definition because when I came here, I knew everything. Anybody else in here like that? You know, Alcoholics Anonymous is the only place in the world where you come in a big shot and have to work your way up to servant. Okay? That came in alcoholic. If you'd asked me what an alcoholic is, I always had a definition of alcohol. Y'all remember Otis on the Andy Griffith Show? That's an alcoholic. Otis' clothes was always wrinkled. He had a pint in his pocket. He was in and out of jail every other day. I watched every episode of the Andy Griffith Show, even the ones in color. I don't remember Otis working no place. All right? That's an alcoholic, right? I always say that I was over in London, England, talking to a big convention, and I asked them that. I said, y'all remember Otis on the Andy Griffith Show? And 2,000 people went, no. Yeah. My sponsor said, for God's sake, why don't you start thinking? I said, hey, I thought they had cable. I didn't know what. You know. So this thing called alcoholism, right? I always had a definition of it, and I like to say it was a sliding definition, because as my alcoholism progressed, I kept fitting the definitions that I had. If you'd asked me when I was a teenager what an alcoholic was, I would have said it's somebody that's drunk every day. Where'd I get that from? Got no idea, but that's what I would have told you. As a teenager, I became a daily drinker. That must not be it. I said an alcoholic is somebody who misses work, school, or important things in life. It interferes with one's priorities in life. Yes, that certainly must be an alcoholic. As a teenager, I began to miss work, school, and important things in life because of drinking. That ain't it. I finally figured it out, though. I said an alcoholic is somebody who goes to jail because of drinking. That certainly must be it. As you'll hear in a few minutes, I really had to change that one. By the time I staggered through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, my definition of an alcoholic was that guy you see under the bridge, long trench coat, stocking cap on his head in July, drinking Wild Irish Rose, Mad Dog, a Thunderbird out of brown paper sack. No, sleeping under a cardboard box. Yes, that certainly must be an alcoholic. Okay? The reason that was my definition when I got here is that's the only thing that had not yet happened to me. And if I didn't have the family that I had that continued to break my fall for many, many years, that is exactly where I would have been. I can stand here tonight in all honesty and tell you that I drank in Wino's Alley in Sandusky, Ohio with all them old men. The only difference between me and them is when it got dark, there was somebody who would open the back door for me, and they didn't have that. I had the nerve to walk into an AA meeting when I was new and poke my chest out, comparing, right, and say, you know, I ain't never been homeless. There was a man at that meeting, his name was Jim Redmond. He died 53 years sober. He looked over at me and he said, really? He said, son, I got some bad news for you. He said, if you grown and you live in your mom and daddy's house and you ain't paying no rent, you homeless. Now, I hope I didn't step on no toes with that. Because that man hurt my feelings. Right? So what is this thing called alcoholism? Threefold disease: mental, physical, spiritual. Doctor's opinion, first thing in the book. What is the problem? I cannot do something about a problem if I don't know if I have the problem or not. So first off, I got to diagnose myself. Okay, threefold disease: mental, physical, and spiritual. Mental part of it, a mental obsession to drink. What is an obsession? I'm a keep it simple kind of guy. An obsession is a thought so powerful in my mind that it will override or overcome any thinking that I can raise as a defense against it. What are some of the mental defenses I tried to raise against taking the first drink? Well, let's see, I tried common sense. My grandmother told me after I got sober why that didn't work. She said, boy, you wasn't born with none. I tried self-knowledge. I did this yesterday. I'm going to now do this. I understand it. That didn't work. Drank again. I tried willpower. I don't know, with Betty Ford or Nancy Reagan, and one of them said, just say no. You know, I kept saying, just give me another one. That didn't work. No. Guy told me using willpower on alcoholism is like you eating a box of X-Lax and using your willpower not to go to the bathroom. That didn't work. Here's a big one. I tried fear of consequences I might face if I drank. If I drink today, I'm going to jail. If I drink today, lose my job, get kicked off the team, get kicked out of school, my girlfriend's going to leave me, get kicked out of the house, whatever it was, right? And I would lay in the bed and I would mentally make a list. I'm in my late teens doing this, of all the reasons why I ain't drinking today. And I want you to understand something. I meant it as much as I mean it now. I'm not drinking. I don't want to go to prison. And I meant it as much as I meant it now. And then I get out of the bed. And usually about 5 seconds later, another thought would come floating in my head. And it usually would go something like this. Maybe you can identify with this. You could have one. Right? One drink never, and bam, just like a radar, I lock on that thought. I'm only going to have one. And here's the killer thing. All those reasons that I just listed for not drinking disappear. Okay? Because I'm only going to have one. And if I only have one, none of that stuff's going to happen. Right? Okay. Now, this is an honest program. And I'm going to be honest with you tonight. I have never in my entire life had one of anything that I enjoy. My philosophy of life is very simple. If once is good, twice is better, three's outstanding, four's magnificent, let's pony up money for five. I am Dr. Feelgood, right? Okay? So what is this thought, I'm only going to have one? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a lie. If the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous is an honesty-based program, we know that the principle of step one is honesty. We know that every principle in the steps must be applied to the following steps. Therefore, the principle of honesty must be applied in all 12 steps. Then doesn't it naturally follow that alcoholism is a lie-based disease? My sponsor, Bill, told me when I was new, he said, I don't know about you, son, but I never walked into the bar room and said, hey, bartender, give me a shot and a beer. I want to be in jail by 9 o'clock. It was always going to be what? It's going to be different. No? So now that I'm only going to have one, I pick up the drink and I drink it. And the second part of the disease, Dr. Silkworth introduced to the world, he called it the phenomenon of craving. Simple story I like to tell about that, and it's a true story. A few years ago, I'm out riding on my lawnmower in Sandusky, Ohio. It's a 90-degree day. So is my non-alcoholic next-door neighbor. I'm watching him over there. He gets hot and thirsty. He shuts his lawnmower off. He gets off it. He walks across the lawn to his deck. He flips open a cooler. It is full of cold beer. He pulls out a cold one. He pops a top on her. He sucks her down. And I know nobody in this room is going to believe it, but I've seen this with my own two eyes. With that full cooler of beer still sitting there, that man actually got back on his lawnmower and finished cutting his grass. The difference between me and my neighbor, if I get off of my lawnmower and I pop the top on a cold one and I suck her down, it does not quench my thirst. What it does to me, and if you're new in here, listen to this, and maybe to you, is it makes me thirstier. and grass cutting is over at the Coleman house. My lawnmower be sitting there 2 weeks from now when I get out of the county. That's how I roll. Spiritual malady, soul sickness. I'm a guy who made a conscious decision. Didn't drift away, didn't not know. I made a conscious decision at the age of 14 that I would never again darken the doors of a church. I had a better way. And I began to do what it talks about in our book. I lived a life run on self-will. And I sought to arrange the people, places, and things in my life to meet my needs on my terms. And here's the problem with that. The people, places, and things in my life refused to cooperate. Okay? And as a result of that, I became restless, irritable, and discontented. Okay? This disease of mind, body, and spirit is called alcoholism. And I got no idea if you got it, but I definitely got it. And I don't treat it. Death, imprisonment, or commitment are guaranteed me. And if you're new here and you don't understand that, just stick around and watch what happens to the people who don't. I'm now 53 years old. I was born in the city of Sandusky, Ohio, the second of three boys. I am the son of Pete and Evelyn Coleman. I had as fine a mother and father that have ever graced this earth. My mom and dad were the best. We weren't sent to church, we were taken to church. Everything that we ever wanted within reason, we got. And if we didn't, we went to our grandmother who lived with us and got it then, right? We didn't participate in anything in school or in sports or in the community that my mom and dad wasn't sitting right there. I never played on a ball team till I got to junior high school that my father didn't coach. My mother was the president of the Ohio Baptist Women's Convention. My mom and dad were the best. My mom and dad were the best. My mother worked for Chrysler Corporation. My father worked for General Motors. I'm retired from Ford. And I always say it was a lot of craziness in the house, but we had really nice cars. But growing up, nothing spectacular about my early childhood other than the fact it lasted 40 years. But some of that in here. But no, we had a great time growing up. But right from the beginning, I had some things going on. Beth described it very well this morning. Always felt somehow different, less than, afraid of everything. Always had this sense that everybody's watching everything I'm doing. You know, we talk now about being self-centered, and what self-centered is for me is simply, I believe that everything in the world has relevance only as it relates to me. Now, every person, place, thing, event, only as it relates to me. I am completely and totally self-absorbed, and I was that way when I was a kid. And so growing up, you know, I did some things. I used to read a lot, daydream a lot. And what I know now, looking back, is I'm already looking for a way out. I'm already looking outside of me to fix what I got going on inside of me. My first drink of choice was my older brother. I had a brother that was 4 years older than I was. I come from a football family. And my father played for West Virginia State University. My Uncle Bo played for Penn State. I had two cousins. One of them played in the SEC, who played in the National Football League for over 10 years. My family do football on Saturdays and Sundays, and we do it in front of 90 and 100,000. That's the family that I come from. And our baby pictures are not laying in a crib. It's in a three-point stance in the middle of the living room in diapers. That's a true story. That's how we were raised. And I had a brother by the time he was 16 years old, was 6'2", he weighed 215 pounds. He could run a 4.40 on a cinder track and tennis shoes. And as a junior, he verbally committed to play football at Ohio State University for Woody Hayes. And I know that I'm pretty close to Baton Rouge, but we play football in Columbus. Every time I come to Louisiana, Alabama, I say that, right? And my brother was my hero. I followed him everywhere that he went, and I hid in his shadow. I had ease and comfort in his shadow. When I was around him, I was around a whole bunch of guys way older than me. Nobody expected me to be, do, or say anything, and I was comfortable with that. I was hiding. And we used to scrimmage. It was a high school. It's a very famous high school football team in Ohio. It's called the Massillon Tigers. And at that time, our high school and that high school were the two great powers in Ohio. There were no playoffs then, so we used to settle the state championship a week before the season started, and we would play them in a full scrimmage game. And we went to Massillon in 1972, and my brother had a big day that day, probably over 200 yards rushing. And late in the scrimmage, he was running by the sidelines. A guy hit him low, a guy hit him high. He fell funny, walked to the sidelines, collapsed, was not breathing. That night, it was a Saturday. That Saturday night, he lapsed into a coma, 9 hours of brain surgery on Monday. He died September the 5th of 1972. And is that what made me alcoholic? Absolutely not. Stop any car out here on the street tonight, talk to anybody in this room, you'll get similar stories of death and tragedy. People live, people die, tragedies happen. That is a part of life. What did it do to me? First and foremost, obviously, it broke my heart. I love my brother. Secondly, looking back at it now, what it really did is it seemed to intensify already the feelings of difference that I already had. Now, when a tragedy like that happens, they flood the schools with counselors, and all of that. This is 1972. That had never happened in Ohio. No one knew what to do. And I couldn't talk to nobody about it. My mom and dad obviously were destroyed. It almost killed my grandparents. And everybody kind of had to do what they had to do. And so it just seemed to intensify the feelings of difference and dis-ease and uncomfortableness that I already had. I was 13 years old. I've never doubted the existence or power of God, because something happened after my brother died that showed me that there is a God. My brother's funeral, according to the Follett House Museum, is the biggest funeral in the history of Sandusky. There were thousands of people who turned out at the funeral home that next Friday night. And we got out of that car, and this whole town, that whole high school, that whole athletic department is about to crumble. And I watched my mother. And my mother walked into that funeral home and stood by that casket, and she turned around and she looked at those people, and this is what she said: I don't know when, I don't know how, and I don't know why, but blessings will come from this someday. And I watched my mother take an entire town and an entire family and put it on her shoulders and walk us through that. And I knew at the age of 13, my mama didn't have that kind of power. I've never doubted the existence of a power greater than myself. After my brother died, I started hanging around guys my own age. I no longer had him to hide from. These are guys I've known since I'm 2 years old. I go to school with them, go to church with them, play ball with them. I've known them all my life. We're standing on a street corner in 1972 at the age of 13. Among our group, there was 3 topics of discussion: drinking beer, smoking weed, and climbing in and out of girls' bedroom windows in the middle of the night. And I was batting 0, 0, 0. I had a mother that did not play none of that. I went to school, church, ball practice, and home. Now, do I let these guys, I have no idea what they're talking about, but do I let them know I don't know what they're talking about? Absolutely not, because I am completely and totally obsessed with what I think you think about me. I don't know what you think about me, but I'm obsessed with what I think you think about me, right? And so we standing on a street corner, right? Y'all remember them dogs they used to put in the back window of the car with the head to go like this? That's me. Oh, yeah, ain't that fun? Yeah, I was over there the other night. Yeah, but I'm 13 years old. I become a liar, a fake, and a phony. I'm telling people I've been places I ain't been. I've done things that I haven't done, and I know people that I don't know. There was an old Amishman in Ohio, very famous speaker in AA. I'm sure people in here have heard Mose Yoder. And Mose used to say, if I always tell the truth, I never have to remember what I said. But back in them days, I had to remember everything I said. I now have to remember what I told you the last time I saw you. Anybody know? That's hard, ain't it? Huh? But that's what happens to me at age 13. I'm a liar, a fake, and a phony. Now, my mom is talking to me a lot after my brother dies, and she's telling me things like, Kenny, God has been so good to you. He's given you so many gifts. One of these days, you're really going to be a service to God and other people. I looked at my mother, and this is what I told her at the age of 13. I have no desire to be a service to God, you, or nobody else. If you want to know what I want out of life, I can tell you very quickly. I want mine. I want to get it my way, and I'm going to need you to leave me alone while I'm doing it. She'd get that sad look on her face that mothers get when they hear something crazy. And she looked at me and she said, you know, Kenny, you don't get it. We didn't raise you that way. And I pointed my finger right back at her and I said, no, you the one who don't get it. If you don't think my way is going to work, get out the way and watch me roll. That's Ken at age 13. One of the gifts God did give me is I did well in school. Today I give God the credit for that. I'm like Beth. I'm a test taker. I can absorb huge amounts of information in short amounts of time, and I know how to take a test. That doesn't make you a good student, as I found out when I got to college. But my sponsor, Bill, told me something when I came in at 8. I went to Bill one day and I said, Bill, can I ask you a question? He said, sure, what is it, Kent? I said, you know that invisible line that they talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous? He said, yes. I said, well, if it's invisible, how does anybody ever know they crossed it? Bill looked at me and he said, I want you to double your meetings. I said, Bill, I'm already going to 3 a day. He said, go to 6, you're driving us all crazy. He told me, he said, you know something, son? He said, anytime you're in a room alone, all your enemies are there. And what he was referring to is my thinking, right? So I'm 13 years old. I'm in high school now, 14 years old, and I'm sitting in study hall. And I had a visit from the enemy, my thinking. And here's the thought that came to me that day. You know, these people in here are breaking their neck trying to get B's and C's in general math and science. I'm taking calculus, physics, 4th year Latin, 4th year English. I'm sleeping in class and getting straight A's. You know, it just might be entirely possible that I know everything. Y'all know where this is going, don't you? I had no evidence to support that thought as being true. I accepted it as a fact. I left the room and took action on it. I actually went home and told that to my mother and father because I thought they ought to know. I figured it's going to change things around the house somewhat. What happened after that, I'll make a long story very short. My father came up off that couch. I'm going to tell you something about my daddy. My daddy played football when he didn't have face masks. I was scared of my daddy. And he came up off that couch. I didn't wait around to see what he wanted. I broke for the screen door, got out the screen door and closed it. He was right behind me. He looked through the screen door and he pointed his finger at me, and this is what he told me. He said, boy, I'm going to tell you something. He said, you're going to have a hard life, Kenny. Nobody know everything. And I stood on that porch and I looked him dead in his eye and I laughed in his face. And that was a significant day in my life because on that day I closed the door. In our book it says honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness are the 3 essentials of recovery and that they are indispensable. On that door I closed my mind. A closed mind cannot learn. A closed mind cannot grow. Everybody in my life immediately became an idiot. My mother, my father, the preacher, the teacher, later on the police, the judges, the lawyer, the probation, the PO. You can't tell me if I don't know it, it ain't worth knowing became my philosophy of life. Selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-absorbed, and according to my mother, mean as a rattlesnake, I have yet to take a drink of alcohol. I tell people I was the perfectly tilled soil for the disease of alcoholism. All I had to do was water it, and I did. I got in the car with a guy I played basketball with in high school. He was 2 years older than me. He lived the life I lived in my head. He had a snazzy car, pocket full of money. He ran around with the kind of girls I ran away from when I seen them coming down the hall. He was known and respected in the bars and gambling spots already. And he looked at me and Johnny said to me, hey, Coleman, you want to get something to drink? Now, I had been warned about drinking alcohol. Alcoholism does not run in my family. It gallops. And I had been told we do not do alcohol well. Look at your Uncle Ed, look at Junior, look at Bobby. They all died of cirrhosis. Both sides of my family are rife with this disease. If Johnny had said to me that day, let's go rob the carry out, I absolutely guarantee you I would have done it. Those are the lengths I'm willing to go to gain your acceptance. I am absolutely devoid of self, and I am devoid of God. We went through the drive-thru. We bought 10 quarts of Schlitz malt liquor bull. To the youngsters in here, a quart of beer preceded the 40 ounce. It was 32 ounces of beer. Johnny looked at me, said, 5 quarts for you, 5 quarts for me. I said, bet. He dropped the top on that beautiful Pontiac. We rolled through the streets of Sandusky with the music blasting, and we drank that beer. And my life changed. I've heard a lot of people talk about the effect produced by alcohol on that first drunk. Here's as simply as I can put it. A guy said one time, there comes a moment in the drinking career of every alcoholic that he takes a drink and alcohol flips the switch, the lights come on. Everything I ever wanted to be, do, or say immediately became possible, and I became completely and totally devoid of fear. Happened the first time I drank. Went behind the Derrick Apartments where all the thugs hung out. I had not said 5 words in public in the last 3 years. We pulled up, people surrounded the car, the music was blasting. I turned to Johnny, I said, turn that music down. There's a few things I want to tell a few people who are present here this afternoon that I've been wanting to tell them for quite some time. And I went around that circle of hoodlums, and not only did I tell each and every one of them what I thought of them, I also told them what they needed to do, in my opinion, to improve themselves. The reaction of the guys standing around that car, guys were leaning into that convertible and hugging me and saying, see, I told you Coleman all right. I told you my boy all right. He's loosened up. He's doing a little drinking. He's one of us. Man, I immediately made a mental note of that. When I drink, I change. And I now have the acceptance of the people whose acceptance I want the most. That wasn't mom and dad. That was them drive-by shooters behind the Derrick Apartments. Alcohol equals success, and you better believe, buddy, I got it. And I got it right then. We left from there. We went over to the home of some of them girls he run around with, I run away from. I had never been over there in my life. I walked into that home like I was paying the mortgage. I went in the dining room and sat down at the dining room table, and I looked across the room at a girl I still think is the finest girl to graduate from Sandusky High School in its 162-year history. I had never even breathed in her direction, much less said hello. And I looked over there at her, and she looked up at me, and I said, come here. And she got up and started walking toward me. Now, any sane human being at this point would probably think, hey, gee, Ken, if you wasn't so shy and scared, look what you could have done just by speaking up. Is that what I thought? Absolutely not. Here's what I thought, and maybe you can identify with this. Here's what I thought. If you had been drinking before now, look what you could have done. Look what you've been missing. Anybody follow that? Okay, I immediately attributed it to drinking. This is my first drunk. Okay. Now, I said earlier, this is an honesty-based program, and I'm going to be honest with you tonight. When she got over there to me, I had no idea what to do with her. I don't think that far ahead when I'm drinking. So I did what they do on TV. I patted my lap, and she sat down in my lap. And my life changed again. And the upshoot to this whole story is very, very simple. On that day, alcohol did for me what I could not or would not do for myself. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. And that's a very powerful thing, and alcohol ain't supposed to do that. Wholeness comes from a relationship with God. What happened after that, I'll pretty much give you the rest of my drinking history. Drink trouble. If this was a beer, and I stood here tonight and took a drink, a cop would drop right out of that light and land in the middle of this floor. The old-timers in Cleveland used to say, put a D on this shoe and a T on this shoe and walk past the bar and go, drink trouble, drink. Man, I got that. Right? What happened the rest of that day? Very simple. Went in a blackout. I have no idea what went on the next 4 or 5 hours. According to eyewitnesses at the house, I came in the front door and threw up. I threw up a trail through the house. through the living room, through the kitchen, through the family room. My grandfather fell on the floor laughing. I went in the bathroom. I had everything but the toilet. The next thing that I remember is my mother knocking on the door, screaming, "Come out here and clean up this mess. You know you've been drinking." Blah, 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 blah. I staggered into the hallway in what later years would be my drinking uniform, my underwear. I'm bouncing off of them hallway walls. I got a hangover that's alive. You could take it out and it could walk across the floor. I am dying. I go in the bathroom, I lock the door, I look through bloodshot eyes into the mirror, and this is what I said. Man, oh man, I cannot wait to do that again, right? Grounded for life is what was being discussed in the living room, right? And how that sentence, I got grounded for life the first time I got drunk. So I'm in the bathroom, I had a meeting with myself. Now, I used to like to have a meeting with myself because I usually could figure out most of the things that was going on. So I had a meeting with myself. And I said to myself, okay, Kent, now let's take a look at what happened. You got drunk? Yep. You got sick? Yep. You threw up Yep. You got grounded for life? Yes, all this is true. Now you have to understand something, Kent. The problem is not that you got drunk. What caused all of this was the getting sick. What you got to do is learn how to drink without getting sick. Anybody follow me? Okay? Not drinking was never on the table. This is my first drunk. Why? Because alcohol equals pats on the back, girls in my lap. Alcohol made me feel whole and killed the fear in me. Alcohol equals success, and I was gone. I'm not a guy that comes to the podium in Alcoholics Anonymous and talks about the good times I had drinking. We've done some laughing here tonight. It was read earlier today to our new friends. We are not a glum lot. If newcomers could see no fun or joy in our existence, they wouldn't want it. I definitely wouldn't have wanted it. It was your laughter. I was attracted to the fellowship when I came here because I didn't know about the program. But I saw people who were happy, and I was so miserable. And and let me tell you something. If you want to be miserable, I'll fight to the death for your right to be miserable, but I got a message for you. I ain't joining you. I ain't joining you. I got as many things going on in my life right now that you might call problems, but I got a message for you. Ain't none of them bigger than the God of my understanding. Okay? I don't have to live like that anymore. I don't have to live like that anymore. And I was gone. I don't talk about these so-called good times. You know what my definition of a good time is, drinking? That any consequences that have to be paid as a result of my drinking are paid by somebody else. I went into a meeting, opened up my big mouth again, because I was a parrot in AA. All right? I go around repeating stuff and I don't even know what it means. If you're new here, let me share something with you that the old timers in Ohio shared with me. If you can't back it up in the book, leave it alone. If you can't back it up in the book, leave it alone. My life depends on this. I don't know about you. I don't know if you got what I got. I got chronic alcoholism, and left untreated, I'm going to die. And I'm going to die one day, but I ain't got to die like that. I ain't got to die like that. I don't play around in here. If you can't tell, I was brought up in no-nonsense Alcoholics Anonymous. No nonsense. God, big book steps, home group, service like we saw up here, period. 3 legacies, unity, recovery, and service. Not 1 or 2, but 3. So where I was brought up in AA. I came into a meeting and said, boy, I had some good times drinking. A man said, really? He said, if we brought your mother and your father, the girl you live with, your neighbors, your co-workers, and your creditors in here, and we said, you know, Ken had a really good time drinking. What kind of time did you guys have? What do you think they'd say? I'm going to tell you something. The truth will set you free. I said to him, I never thought of it that way. And he looked at me and he said, I know you haven't, because all you ever think about is you. From the day I picked it up to the day I put it down, somebody had to pay. Wasn't always me, especially in the beginning. Let me tell you something. We talk a lot about child abuse in society today. Take a look at a parent abuser. Take a look at a parent abuser. I bought anxiety, fear, resentment, guilt, shame, anger, remorse into that house, and I infected the people who loved me most with it until they were sicker than I was. I was telling Mark today a story. My daddy, I hit somebody over the head or something one night downtown, and my daddy came and got me out of jail. And he had to get a bail bondsman because it was the middle of the night and he didn't have that kind of cash. And he was taking me home, and this is what my father said to me. He said, "I'm going to get a couple $1,000s and put it under the mattress just in case I have to come get you out of jail." See, that's how sick I made my daddy. That's how sick I made my daddy. My mother, they gave me a car at the age of 16. Had a 1 o'clock curfew. I went to Toledo, Ohio on a Saturday night. Put on a 3-piece suit, put my fake ID in my wallet, and I went to the All Beautiful Shade nightclub, which turned out to be a dump, but it sounded good on the radio. And I'm in the Shade nightclub drinking gin and juices and dancing with a woman older than my mother. I came home at 4 o'clock in the morning. My mother is sitting on the living room couch with the lamp on. Now, my mother was always awake when I came home. Her bedroom light would be on, and when I would come in the front door, she would holler, "Kenny, come here so I can see you." And this is what I would do. I would go to my mother and father's room. I would stick my head around the corner, and I would look at my mother, and I would say in all sincerity, "Why are you up? Why are you up? If y'all go somewhere, I don't sit up here at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning waiting on y'all to come home." I want you to understand the depth of my selfishness and self-centeredness and self-absorption. I can't even comprehend the love of a parent for a child. I was 16 years old. I am so full of me, I can't even see you. I thought they were idiots. But when I came home at 4 o'clock, she was sitting on the living room couch, the lamp was on, and when I walked through the door, tears was running down her face, and this is what my mama told me. She said, "Kenny, I'm going to tell you something. As your parents, we owe you a roof over your head, food to eat, clothes on your back, and an education, and we have fulfilled our part of the bargain." She said, "But Buster, I got something that you can't have." And she said, "That's my peace of mind." She said, "Kenny, you going to penitentiary or the cemetery, and I got a message for you. I am not going with you. I'm done. I'm giving you to God. I'm done. Go. Do what you want. I'm done." And this is what I said to my mom. "I broke you. I broke you, and I want you to know something, Mama. You're such a spiritual giant. I'm a little bit disappointed because it wasn't even that hard." And I walked away as Ken at age 16. I graduated from high school, and I went to school in the same town we heard Beth this morning, who made a comment as she was growing up. I was down there getting thrown out of school. I went to Miami of Ohio in Oxford, Ohio. And one of the finer institutions of higher learning in this country, at least it was till I got there. And I'm supposed to be down there playing ball and being a good citizen and all of that. And my alcoholism just exploded. No parental interference. I set up headquarters at the Boar's Head Inn uptown, and I was off and running. By the time I'm 19 years old, I got shakes in the morning. I went down to the Boar's Head. I told Tom, the bartender, I guess he was kind of like my sponsor. I said, "I think I got Parkinson's." He looked at me and said, "You're 19 years old, you got Parkinson's?" He said, "I'm going to tell you what you do, son." He said, "I want you to go get a fifth of 100 proof old granddad. I want you to drink 2 shots in the morning. I guarantee your hands will stop shaking." I went out and I got the granddad. I got up the next morning shaking like a leaf. I drank 2 shots. My hands stopped shaking. You know what I said? That man's a genius. My sponsor, Bill, pointed out to me when I came into AA, he said, "But do you notice, son, that you never questioned the bartender? But you were surrounded by coaches, counselors, advisors, professors, family, friends, people who loved you. And all you ever said to them was, I know what I'm doing. It's my life. I ain't hurt nobody. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. But you never questioned the bartender. To our new friends here tonight, why is it that I'm always willing to listen to the people who harm me? Why is that? In Bill's story, we saw the progression of his alcoholism. And there's a funny thing about that. A baffling thing about alcoholism is that you can't see what it's doing to you till you're free of it. See, looking in the rearview mirror today, I could tell you all the stuff that alcohol took from me, but when I'm living in it, I can't see it. I'm blaming everybody else. And my life just went downhill and went downhill fast. I went from going to school to be a successful businessman and athlete to eventually, and I didn't realize it when I was doing it, I constructed my life to accommodate my drinking. The classes I took, the people I hung around, the places that I went, everything was, and that happened somewhere in between my 18th and 19th years on this earth. And I can look back at it and see it now. And I finally got out of there, and I came home to take the kind of job I went to college to avoid, and that was working in a factory. And the reason that I did that was because it accommodated my drinking. They got something in factories that guys like me who drink like I do and don't go to work like I don't go to work need very desperately. It's called a union, okay? And I knew, because my daddy was in the union at General Motors, that the union at UAW would protect me. And my alcoholism progressed. I'll bring you up to the end of my drinking. I drank for 18 years. I've been convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol 7 times in the state of Ohio. I've been convicted on felony weapons charge, felony narcotics charge. I'm a guy that gets in a lot of trouble. And I'm going to show you about my alcoholism. I got sentenced to 5 years in the state penitentiary in Mansfield for something that I did, and I should have gone to the penitentiary. And my uncle, my mother's brother, was the mayor of Sandusky. So the judge looks at me and says, I know your uncle, I know your mother, I know your father, some of the most upstanding citizens in this town. So before I throw you away, Mr. College man, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you one more chance. I'm going to place you on a period of indefinite probation, 1 dirty urine. You go to prison for 5 years. I ain't shocking you out. You got a jacket this thick, and we're sick of it. You're going to end up hurting somebody. And I stood in that courtroom, and I made a promise to God, I'll never drink again. And I meant it as much as I mean it now, okay? I want to share something with you. If I had the power to choose not to drink and not drink, I wouldn't need AA, would I? If I had the power to choose not to drink and could not drink, I wouldn't need this. The next Friday, I'm on my way to adult probation, a dirty urine, I go to prison. Here's the thought that came to me. I'm driving down the street. You know, they say they never test you on your first time reporting. They don't think anybody's that stupid. Who is they? I stopped, got a doubleheader of Granddad. I walked into adult probation with 5 years hanging over my head for a dirty urine, knee walking drunk. That's a true story. If I had the power to quit drinking on my own, I'd have never come to AA. Why should I? And I didn't drink that day because I wanted to go to prison. I drank that day because I'm powerless over alcohol and my life was unmanageable and I ain't got the power not to. At the end, no baths, no showers, I ain't going to work. Tens of thousands of dollars in debt, I live like an animal. No, I got a liver that's distended about 7 inches. When I was 28 years old, I had a heart attack and dropped dead on my bedroom floor. I could tell you a lot of things. And I came out of a bar. I'm 32 years old. And it was 11:30 at night. I had to be to work at midnight. 1 minute late, I'm fired. And I got in a car, my brother was driving, and I had what they call a moment of clarity or a moment of sanity. There's a guy in Cleveland, Six-Pack Charlie Kitchen, and Charlie said that that's the moment when God paralyzes the liar in you long enough for you to see the truth. And I got in that car, and for the first time in almost 20 years, my head completely cleared, and this is what I saw. Ken, if you don't get some help, you're going to die. And you better do it now because you're running out of time. Out of nowhere. I went home and I called my best drinking buddy from college. He's a doctor today. I owed him $5,000, hadn't paid him a dime. His wife answered the phone, and this is what she said and how she said it. Richard, it's Kent. And Richard got on the phone, you know. And I said, Rich, it's your boy, man. I need some help. And this is what he said to me. Pack a bag. Stay by the phone. I got you. And he is not a member of this fellowship. When I get a call from the North Central Intergroup Office of Alcoholics Anonymous in Ohio at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know what I tell them, don't you? Pack a bag. Stay by the phone. I got you. And for that, I am responsible. He told me don't go to work. He said, they're going to fire you. He says, I want you to come down here. He lived in Centerville, Ohio, outside of Dayton, about 220 miles from where I live. He says, I'm going to put you in treatment in a place called Green Hall in Green Memorial Hospital. I got one of them $25,000 big books. And got up the next day, my brother and his wife in the front seat. There was 25 of us in the back seat. That was me and a case of Genesee beer. Now, I didn't know too much about treatment, but I figured out on my own that they wasn't serving no liquor down there. So as we sped down I-75, I got to drinking them cold beers, and after 3 or 4 cold beers, y'all ain't gonna believe this, but I had a visit from the enemy, my thinking, on my way to treatment. And here's what the enemy told me after 3 or 4 beers. You know, I just may have overreacted here. It ain't that bad. I'll start my comeback tomorrow. Y'all know the deal, right? What I didn't know is that my father told my brother and his wife, I will give you $100 if you don't bring that tramp back here. That's a true story. So they refused to turn around. We got to Richard's house. I was knee walking drunk. He bought me a quart of Miller's and drove me from his home in Centerville to the hospital in Xenia. We pulled in the hospital parking lot at Green Memorial Hospital. I had about this much left in that quart of Miller's. He put his car in park. He turned and looked at me, and this is what he said. He said, go ahead, dog, finish that up. And he said, don't ask me how I know it, man. He said, that's the last drink you're ever going to take. That was the 17th of May, 1992. I have not had another drop of alcohol or anything stronger than that since that day. And that applause is for you. If I had the power to stay sober on my own, I'd have never come to AA. Why should I? It's because AA works. And when I say AA works, I mean the fellowship, the steps, and our service structure. Buy the whole package. It's guaranteed to work. I got out of detox, I went to men's group. They had men reading out loud stories of their drinking escapades in the streets. The counselor, Jim, looked at me and said, Kent, your first day in group, tell us what you think about what you heard. I said, I'll tell you what I think about what I heard, Jim. What I'm down here for a few days to get help for this small problem I might have. I would like to volunteer my time, service, and energy to help you with these people because these are the sickest people I've ever seen in my life. That one statement got me an extra week of treatment. I spent 35 days in a 28-day program. They cut my insurance off at 28 days. The hospital called the Ford plant, and they told them, said, we don't think Kent's ready to leave the hospital. You know what they said out the Ford plant? We don't either. Next morning, they called me down to the nurse's station where my enemy, Mary the nurse, who was 28 years sober, hung a sign around my neck this big. It said, I am not a counselor. I had to wear it for a whole week. I do treatment good. Had me write and read to the group. I did. Jim said, put your chair in the middle of the room. Let's make a circle around Kent, telling him what we think of him. I think Kent's so full of BS. His eyes are turning brown. If you threw him in water, he'd float away. That was the nicest thing sitting in that room that day. And what them guys in that room told me, if I didn't get honest with myself, I was going to leave that place and I was going to die. And I believed them. And I don't know why. And I went back to my room and I sat on the edge of my bed and I made a decision to be as honest as I could the rest of the time I was there. Game recognizes game. Whatever bit them guys bit me, and I knew it. I went to my first AA meeting at Green Hall. It was a discussion meeting. It was a lady from out of town. She was from Indiana. She raised her hand and she shared a problem with the group. And they went around the room and they shared with that lady similar problems they had and the solutions they had found. I saw the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous come to the aid of a complete and total stranger at my first meeting with no judgment or condemnation. My thought at my first AA meeting as I watched this unfold in front of me was, how could something like this exist and I've never heard of it? I was given a gift of loving Alcoholics Anonymous the first time I saw it. Now, if that hasn't happened for you yet, keep coming back. Get a sponsor, get a home group, work the steps, and it will happen. I got out of treatment and I came home and I played a game. It's called Don't Drink, Go to Meetings, and Don't Do Nothing Else. If I put my arm through a window and I cut an artery in my arm, I start bleeding all over the floor. I put a towel on my arm. I drive myself to the hospital. I run into the emergency room and sit down. The doctor comes out and says, come on back, Mr. Coleman, we'll treat you now. I sit there in the emergency room bleeding to death, look at the doctor and say, no, thank you, I'll just sit here. And I bleed to death in the emergency room. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the emergency room. I have been sober long enough now. I've watched people who attend meetings on a daily basis die of untreated alcoholism. The treatment for the disease I suffer from is a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, period. Period. If you're an alcoholic of our type. I went to 250 meetings in 3 months and ended up in the parking lot of Daly's Pub vibrating. I wanted to drink so badly. I thought my problem was alcohol. I hadn't had a drink in 3 months. I've been to 250 AA meetings. I went to 3 meetings a day, 4 or 5 on Saturday and Sunday. And I'm vibrating because my problem's not alcohol. My problem is alcoholism. And our book clearly states that when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. And I ain't doing nothing spiritually. I got no sponsor, no home. I treated AA like a cigarette-smoking, donut-dunking coffee clutch. And instead of walking into Daly's Pub, I pulled out of there. I went to an AA meeting, and I ran in the door, and I ran up to a man, and I said, would you help me? And this is what the man told me. He said, I will sponsor you from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I will show you how I live the principles of that book in my life. You know, they call it 12 Steps, a kit of spiritual tools. I love that. I got a toolbox in my house. I ain't never seen a hammer and screwdriver walk across the floor of my living room and fix a thing. The only value of a tool is if I pick it up and use it. The only value of these steps is if I apply them to my life. I have stood behind podiums of Alcoholics Anonymous all over this earth. I have yet to attend a meeting where somebody stands up and says, works if you know it. For our new friends, the program of recovery is not about the acquisition and knowledge and intellect. It's about the application of principles, and until the rubber meets the road, it ain't happening. It just ain't happening. And my sponsor took me through the steps of this program as I try to live them in my life today. I'm going to wrap this thing up here, and I'm going to tell you a couple quick things. I had the opportunity to make amends to my parents. I had a sponsor who told me, Bill told me, he said, you ain't going into that house with none of this I'm sorry crap. I had to move back into my mom and dad's house when I got out of treatment because I didn't have a safe place to live where I could stay sober. And so I'm back over there, and they said, one slip up and you're gone. And he said, I want you to do something you haven't done in your 32 years of living. And I said, what's that, Bill? He said, go into that home and be the kind of son that God would have you to be. My mom was dying of bone cancer when I got sober, and I helped my dad take care of my mom. I picked her up, we bathed her. My mom saw me go to all those AA meetings. My mom lived long enough to see me bring my first sponsees into that house and sit at the kitchen table and open the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. My mama seen me put on a shirt and a tie and go speak at AA meetings when I didn't even have a suit. When it came time, my sponsor said, you got to go and do it now. They got her off the morphine. She was close to the end. I had a big speech planned out. I went to the hospital, and I sat down with my mom. And she looked at me with them my mother had the biggest brown eyes I ever seen. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and she had tears running down her face, and I had tears running down mine, and the only thing I could get out of my mouth was, Mom, I'm sorry. And my mother beamed at me. And this is what she said. She said, I forgive you. She said, I want you to promise me that you will stay with those people in Alcoholics Anonymous, Kenny, because they were able to do for you what we could not. They were the answer to our prayer. My mama died holding my hands and looking in my eyes with my whole family up there, and I got a big family, calling her name. And my uncle stood in the back of the room and said, don't call her no more, because she ain't going to look away from him. And that's how my mama left this earth. And I've been blessed a billion times since, but if I never got nothing else, I want to tell everybody in here tonight that was enough. Thank God for the fellowship and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. My dad died in 2010. I think I was sober like 18 or 19 years. My dad saw a lot of stuff. My dad saw me get married I was, 3 or 4 years sober. My father saw the birth of my 2 daughters. My mom and daddy, they didn't follow the AA script. You ever hear them speakers say, I went to make financial amends to my parents, and they said, oh no, don't worry about the money, just stay sober. My mom and daddy missed that. I went to them, and my mother said, I want my money. You know? Go see your daddy, right? I made the payments, right? I paid the money back, right? Me and my dad, we had a great relationship. We didn't agree with the way we both did a lot of stuff. But then when my daddy died, there was nothing left on the table. I was the last person to see him alive. My little girls worshiped their granddaddy. And the last thing he said to me as I was walking out of his hospital room, and I knew I wouldn't see him alive again, is he said, don't bring them girls up here today. And I said, Daddy, I won't. Thank God for the fellowship and the program. My daddy worked at General Motors with a guy named Joe who's sober 30-some years now. And Joe came to me after my daddy died. He said, Kenny, I'm going to tell you something. He said, you did something one time that made the front page of the newspaper, and your father said to me that I'm ashamed to come to work. My father was a decorated Korean War veteran, a man who lived his life so he could hold his head up in the community, who gave to others. My father told me, I'm ashamed to go to work. He said, but after you was a year sober, your father came up to me and said, hey, Joe, do you know my boy? And he said, yeah, Pete, I know your boy. And he said, your dad looked at me and said, man, ain't he something? Don't talk to me about what can't happen here. Don't talk to me about what God can't do. Don't talk to me about it. Got married in here, was married 18 years, got divorced last year. I got 2 daughters. I got 2 beautiful daughters. They look like my ex-wife and my mother combined, ages 12 and 16. They look like them, but act like me. Stay tuned. Moved out to Las Vegas, spent a year out there with my sponsor, Bob. I'm back in Ohio again, working in automotive. I'm too young to stay retired. My kids got to go to college. I've had every kind of issue, I guess, that you could have in sobriety, financial, relationship. You know, life be life. But I don't have any problems bigger than the God of my understanding. I've been given a simple way of life. I lived in a home where these principles were practiced. You ever hear somebody say this at an AA meeting? Boy, those people out there sure could use what we got in here. Where do you think we got it? Spiritually principled living didn't start in Akron in 1935. Those principles are ancient. And there's people who live like that out there every day. And guess what? They don't expect a pat on the back for it either. What a wonderful way of life. They gave me a tape of a man named Warren Chisholm Sr., 12th man in AA in Cleveland, got sober in 1939. He was a friend of my sponsor, Bill. In that tape, Warren Chisholm Sr. made this statement, that anyone who comes here who is willing to practice the principles and precepts of this program, as outlined by the founders in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, need never drink again, one day at a time. I ran to Finley. I said, your buddy can't say that, Bill. He said, say what? I said, never drink again. And Bill said, oh, yes, he can. And he said, I'm going to tell you why I can't. He says, because this is a spiritual program, and God doesn't fail. If this don't work for you, it's because you have not fulfilled the conditions that have been laid down. You must participate in your own recovery. Those who do get, and those who don't. And it's just that simple. If I said anything that helped anybody tonight, thank God, don't thank me. If I didn't say nothing to help you tonight, guess what? Come here, Chuck, in the morning. God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. God could and would if he were sought. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him until your fellows clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller start calibration, out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.